Arthur Schopenhauer, for example, he said that we're all driven by the will. It's a very Buddhist explanation in philosophy, but we're all driven by the will, or the need for life. I studied this ages ago. Forgive me if I get things wrong, but we're all driven by this will, this need for life. And he had a quote which says that human life is, I'm going to get it wrong, but it's a pendulum that oscillates between boredom and suffering. And he then gives you the way out of that. You know, he prescribes the disease, but then for him, the cure is, well, you either get into aesthetics and you go into music and art and you try and elevate yourself out of that state through that. You become an ascetic and you live like a monk. But the fact is, the underlying driving force is always going to be there, according to Schopenhauer. And in Buddhism, the first noble truth is that all life is dukkha, all life is suffering. And the cause of suffering is tanha, craving. We're always out there trying to patch this, you know, this angst, this deep feeling of something, there's got to be something more out there. And maybe that's just the human condition. And it brings us full circle back to that thing about art. Well, art tries damn hard to patch that. And the effort, for me, is enough.
And it resonates a lot with me because, like, just to get vulnerable for a second, and I'll see if you can gain anything from me saying this, but, like, I feel like I struggle with the shallowness of a lot of parts of life. Whether it's the small talk conversation with a stranger, or the sitting on public transport and seeing the sort of jaded look in everyone's eye, and the fact we're just glued into these phones and no one's interacting with each other, or it's the mundane work that I have to do and the emails I have to reply to and all the sort of bullshit of whatever this world we're in now is. I struggle with that, and I am always, whether I like it or not, my mind is always wired to try and see depth in things and uncover that depth and talk about that depth and explore that depth, even if most of the people that I come into contact with in the things that I have to do on a daily basis don't understand or get that. And I struggle with that, and actually sometimes feel quite isolated and misunderstood with the fact that I want to be having conversations like this. I want to be reading about and learning about stuff like this. I don't care about how many pints you had at the weekend or what football team you support, or, you know, unless the social context needs me to be that guy, I want to have this will to experience and talk about life at its purest form, whatever that means. That drive, that hunger for discovery is in me. And my world out there doesn't necessarily reflect that all the time. So with the way that your mind is, that I can tell from just these 25 minutes, have you had a similar experience with that? And with your sort of thirst for this kind of stuff, how did you find the like-minded people, or how did you satisfy that curiosity for yourself at the beginning, and how has that developed over time? Tell me a little bit about your story with that.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that, Joel. I think that's something that's definitely resonated with me at times in my life. I will often find that when I'm out there looking for, it takes us back to what you were saying, Jacob, when I'm out there looking for more, pushing myself harder to be more monk-like, to think more, to read more, to journal, to write, to work, that's often when I'm at my most dissatisfied. And I don't know whether dissatisfaction is something that's meant good or meant to drive you on, or whether it's just a case of there's something that I'm looking out there for something, when in reality the in here isn't nice. And I'm not saying that's all your case, Joel, but I certainly find that I have to try, personally speaking, for me, I have to try and do both. Like, I do love going to, I'm a big football fan. I love going when I can to watch my team. I like having beers with my mates on the weekend. But I also like going to galleries, going for walks with no headphones, reading books, like going to a concert of classical music just to try and see what it's like, not because I think classical's great, or just doing different things. I think, though, when it comes to the other people aspect, we all know what it's like to be frustrated by other people. But I think that gap is when we create distance between us and them, us and people, and fail to remember that we are actually exactly the same. I mean, I studied theology at university. I'll tell you a little bit about my story afterwards, but I studied theology at university, and one of my favorite theological concepts was by Desmond Tutu, the famous archbishop in South Africa, apartheid. He said, "I am who I am because of everyone." And it's an Ubuntu theology. Ubuntu is it's the concept that's what it translates as. I am who I am because of everyone. The language I'm speaking in was taught to me. The very language which is the building blocks of how we think, how we consider, how we reason, how we dream. Everything has been taught to us by other people. So trying to separate the same person who's critiquing the society in which they're in from that society is impossible.